I'm going to sign you in as a guest. So you can share it.
Can you hear us? Good. The video on the owl is not working, so you're just going to be looking at me. We're ready.
Okay. One from my watch is 6:01, so I'm calling the meeting to order. First thing is adjustments to the agenda.
Yeah, I gave you an updated agenda on the table. It should have 3 items to adjust. Superintendent add item enrollment data, hires, cook assistant at Dr. Lavash, and then under new business, additional nursing services.
Period of public participation on items of this agenda. Apparently there's none. So, approval of minutes, meeting 10:37, August 6, 2020. Get a motion? Josh, second? Casey? Any discussion? No discussion? Those in favor? Opposed? No. Motion carried. Superintendent, that's 5.
So I just wanted to give you guys some updates on what's going on at the DOE. Last week, we were given an update that transportation, there was some flexibility with busing students. We first thought, well, we originally thought, or the guidance we had originally was 1 student per seat. So every other seat, 1 student per seat. So we were looking at putting 24 students max on a bus. And since then, I think it was last Wednesday, last Tuesday, they came out with new guidance that we are allowed to put, the language is kind of vague, but it says as long as you're not putting maximum capacity in a bus and trying to social distance 3 feet as best you can. So we made a determination that we're going to put 2 students per seat, especially the littler students that can provide that distance on either end of the seat. There is maybe per seat, depending on what our needs are for busing. In a bit, I'll show you the enrollment data and showing you how to take the bus transportation, and that will help us figure out exactly how we're going to proceed. But with the two students per seat, we feel comfortable being able to bring them in on the busing routes that we have, which is good. Other guidance from the DOE, there's some discussion right now with face coverings, whether or not face coverings have to be a mask or it can be a bandana. It's just a lot of different, there's a lot of different interpretations. And we've heard from our health advisor that the CDC should be updating their guidance on face coverings to mean specifically a mask. Bandanas and other face coverings, a scarf wrapped around your head will probably not be the guidance that they're looking at. Other guidance from the DOE is in regards to CARES Act funds. We have to meet to submit our application for CRF funds. We've done the CARES Act, but we have to do that before the end of the month. So Giselle, Lucy, and I will be meeting tomorrow just to do that. And I'll share with you in a couple items here our current CRF fund uses and what we hope to also CRF funds. That's pretty much the updated guidance from the DOE. Am I missing anything? No, is there any, Peter?
Just to add with the buses, we will attempt to keep the bus behind the driver and seat when we can, also just to give that person at least 6 feet.
Yeah, the driver needs 6 feet. Valley Unified Huddle and Communication Plan. Every morning at 7:30, Giselle, Lucy, myself, Peter, and Sharon, we do a daily huddle. It was actually recommended to me by administration at Northern Maine Medical Center when they were bringing staff back on site. They would have a daily huddle with the administrative team to basically outline some of the key components that can be communicated with the staff. We are doing that, and we're focusing our conversations around health and wellness, safety protocols, equipment purchases, educational determinations, and then determination for our staff, so about our people. And last Friday, we pushed out our first report on that to our staff members. I believe all the board members are copied in on that as well. We plan to do that every Friday, just update staff on what's going on and what's new. So we had some really good positive feedback from our staff on that this weekend, and we hope to continue to do that until we don't need to anymore. So for the unforeseeable future. CRF funds, I'm going to bring up something on my screen here and share it so that we can all see it. We have begun to start to order a lot of supplies. Right now, most of the supplies that we are ordering are specific to a lot of the PPE that we need. Here's funding. Here.
I think it's called the carry purchases.
Thank you. While I'm finding this, I also there was a delivery of PPE from the state that was brought up to SAD27 and to Madawaska, and we're trying to figure out where the delivery for SAD33 was. Did we get an update on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I received those beginning of the weekend.
Oh, you did?
Yesterday, all three schools.
Oh, you've already received them. Yours came in first.
Yeah.
Lucy, I'm just not finding it.
Carry
Oh, right here, I got it. Jean, I'll share my screen so you can see it as well. All right. So we're trying to track all of the purchases that we're making so that we can obviously make sure that we're not losing sight of the purchases. So for SAD33, a lot of the purchases, as I mentioned before, Clorox wipes, a lot of the hand sanitizer, a lot of the cleaning supplies, disposable face masks, gloves, thermometers. So you can see a running total of what we're purchasing. We have the temperature monitoring systems that have started being installed in the schools, where essentially you walk in front of a screening device and it takes your temperature. It also has a cool feature that it will tell you if you do not have a face mask on, it will remind you to put your face mask on, which is kind of neat. So those are going to school as well. We do have some technology purchases, and then we have some floor cushions for the elementary school where we're removing some of the rugs. We have cushions and getting plastic bottles and a lot of independent student items so that we can eliminate as much of the shared equipment as possible. Even though we do not have guidance right now from the DOE to use plexiglass shields, they're saying that the face mask is the safety feature that they want. We have gone ahead and we've ordered plexiglass shields for all students. They're going to have their own trifold desk shield. Just as an added precaution, just because We know that oftentimes students are situated in tables rather than desks, and we want to have that extra barrier. And if the department in the future does phase away from masks and suggest plexiglass, we'll already have that in place. So every student will carry their own divider with them from class to class and use it as they need to. We can use it as privacy shields, tape and paper. If they're doing a test, they don't have to, have to worry about students, copying them. So it's going to have a dual purpose as well. Some of the things that we're looking to possibly do with CRF funds, again, those funds have to be directly related to the impact of this virus. We're noticing that the entranceway of both Wisdom and Dr. Levac, and we've talked to you guys about this before with regards to safety. It's also a concern with regards to health and safety if we have to isolate a student who comes in with a fever or with symptoms. We would like that added security. So we will be looking at pricing out a second set of doors as a safety vestibule for both buildings. So when you walk into Wisdom, you have a second set of doors that Deb will have to buzz you in before you access the school. Same thing with Dr. Levac. You'll get as far as the nailed window, but you won't be able to get beyond that. We are looking to use CRF funds for that, as it does have a health safety component to it. Another thing that we're looking at as well is, refresh my memory. We just talked about it.
We have the request I talked to you about.
Yeah.
We have a request from the tech center to try to purchase a portal that we can move our students to programs when needed. We just to somehow live COVID. That's when I hear with their request from tech. I'm communicating with Pat Kinkley right now. The request is for a transit van, which is 10 to 15 passengers. That's not possible for safety reasons. I have looked into a short bus, which can carry, if you want, 10, 15, 20, 25, whatever, but those buses are in the $60,000 range. It's almost equivalent to a large bus. So maybe we just need another bus. But the issue that Kevin had that we were trying to solve is that he would like it to be someone who doesn't necessarily have a license to drive a bus, be it himself or the instructor. So we're not there yet, but that's one of the ideas floating. We will come back to you at some point when that decision is made. The other item is a request from Ralph. Pool was rekeyed on the exterior doors last year, in the past year. The inside doors are not, they're
That's all the key.
no, I saw a chain, a key chain that was like 10 pounds. I think we can, and this also came up at the teacher negotiations. I think Jean was there. Teachers who like to come and work at odd times can't get into the teacher's room, would like to get into the library. So we're getting quotes right now to get the school interior doors rekeyed. I have to somehow link that to safety and COVID, and I'm working on that. So that's one other request. That's what I know. We have the art teacher just emailed a few minutes ago. She wants pilots to be able to send home the kids. Little things like that that teachers are going to be requesting.
So we also bought webcams. I have one here somewhere. Webcams for all of the teachers, so that when they are recording their lessons for remote learners, they're going to have a webcam, so that they're not using the little camera on their laptop to try to do that while they're teaching their classes. And we're also looking at iPads as well, so that teachers can Zoom right from the iPad and have that interactive device where they're not carrying their laptop to try to manage that. So all these are, yeah, so.
Another device that teachers have requested is the Ipo Document Camera and an iPencil, so that a math teacher, for example, can actually be writing on the iPad to show how the math equation is done, or another teacher might want to use a document camera. Equivalent to overhead projectors that we used to have, but now it goes through your computer. So in a Zoom lesson, a teacher could be sharing another document.
And in a little bit, we want to talk to you all about nursing services, what you have here, and an idea we have, if you agree, for additional nursing services. So right now, that's what we're looking at for CRF funds, and we'll keep updating you as we continue to figure out our needs and what's going on. Right now, the priority is safety and wellness, so that we have definitely safe schools for our students to return to and our staff to return to. Item D is a quick tour of wisdom. I suggest that we move that to the end of the meeting so that we don't have to break right now, but I think we should look at some of the new safety features that have been put in place with regard to ADA compliance and some of the other improvements. So I'm going to ask that Ralph give us a quick tour at the end of the meeting, just specific to those improvements. Ralph, would that be all right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done a lot of markings and stuff yet, but we did have we've got the plexiglass stuff, we've got the ADA. And all of that.
Yeah, just so that we can see what's been done today. And then I do have a packet on your table for enrollment data, and that is specific to the surveys that we sent parents about whether or not their students will be coming back to school. And we needed to make sure that we have as much data as possible around that. And Jean, I'll share my screen again so that you can see that. The first page, you'll see Dr. Levac Elementary School data, which shows the grade levels and how many responses. 133 responses. Some of those are duplicate responses, so we're sorting through that right now, eliminating the duplicates and making sure we have the accurate data so that Cheryl and her staff can call those families that haven't responded. Which statement best fits your child's education plans this fall? So about 13.5% will be remote learning, and then 6% will be choosing homeschool as an option, with 80.5% coming back to school. Do you plan to use the school bus transportation? About 75% of the Dr. Levac Elementary students say yes. So we're looking roughly at about 70, 75 kids there using the transportation or planning to use the transportation. Face mask, do you need the school to supply you with face masks, or are you going to bring your own, or are you getting a note from your doctor for a shield? So about 16% say they would like the school to supply them, and we have those supplies to be able to do that. Does your child need social, emotional, behavioral, mental supports additional when they come to school? And about 9% or roughly 10% are saying they do. And then, does your family need a thermometer for your daily morning symptom check? And Northern Maine Medical Center will actually be helping in providing the families with a thermometer if they need one. So that's really nice. Remote learners, out of those 18 kids that are saying they want remote learning, we asked about their technology needs. Do they need a device, or do they have a device at home? So we're getting that data. We found out that from those 18, they have sufficient internet, which is wonderful, and that they've reviewed the requirements for remote learning. And then those that have chosen remote learning, do they need counselor services? All 18 of them are saying no at this time. And again, information on the homeschoolers and whether or not they've registered for homeschooling. For wisdom, we have similar data, a lot fewer students choosing to remote learn at wisdom. Ralph, what is that count? Is it 3?
I think it's up to 7 or 8 right now.
Okay. So 95% of the kids are planning on coming back. Far less are going to use the transportation. Obviously, these students, many of them drive, so that has a factor in it as well. So about 42% will use the bus. We see the face mask data, we see the social emotional needs data, and then we see the thermometer data as well. We see the students that are going to remote learning, whether or not they need help with devices, and if their internet is sufficient, and whether or not they review the remote learning guidelines. So all in all, it's kind of tricky when we get to the elementary school, figuring out how we're going to manage those students that are remote learning. So Cheryl and I and the other principals, the other elementary principals are meeting on Thursday. We're hoping to have a firmer number, a firmer set number on this data so that we can look carefully at who's going to manage these students, who's going to manage these students, and how is it going to work in both worlds. We really don't want to task our elementary teachers with living in both worlds. High school is a little bit easier where they can follow a schedule, and maybe sixth grade that can happen, maybe even fifth grade. But if we can have a remote teacher taking care of remote learners, or a couple of them, and then see how that impacts the kids in the classroom, we definitely need to look at all of that as well. So we're going to meet on Thursday, look at that. We'll also have the staff numbers. Right now, we do not, I believe we do not have any staff in MSAD33 saying that they will be requesting a doctor's note to teach from home. So all of them are available in classrooms. Some of them have volunteered to manage remote learners if we need them to. So we do have some folks that would take on that responsibility. We just have to see where the numbers fit. Yeah.
How complete is this data as far as how many people are missing?
Ralph, about how many students are you missing?
On my side, I'm down to 2. Actually, we have 2 transfers from Fort Campbell. We've got information tomorrow. And I've called the listed parents, so we're down to 2 people that have done it.
And Cheryl, do you know about one?
I've got 2 that I contacted a few today, but 2 I've not connected with. I've left messages though. And we found that on the list, we probably have at least 5 who moved out of the area and just haven't got a records transfer yet.
So pretty accurate data. As of today, I was so this I actually printed out before we sorted through. I went and deleted some duplicates, so the numbers are going to be a little bit less, but it's more accurate of what's happening. Any questions on the data? We're going to do the best that we can, and I'm really optimistic that with the staff that are willing to manage remote or in classroom, I think we can get it so that it's doable. We may also look at across Valley Unified, the 3 elementary schools, can we support each other in helping with that? And we'll have this conversation Thursday, and Cheryl's going to have all the answers. So I'm really happy with that. Just kidding, Cheryl. That's all I have for you under superintendent.
Any other questions? And 6, that is the old business reintegration plan update.
So we just have a couple of updates in the plan, the actual reintegration plan that I wanted to go over with you, just so you had an idea of what those updates are. When you approved that plan, we did say that it was going to be a plan that would change as we needed to, and we haven't made any major changes to the document. I'm going to share the screen. So there hasn't been any updates today. 8/14/20 was the last update, and what I wanted to show you is as we change updates. So right here under face mask coverings, the DOE did put out a change. We're now going to put an update date where they fit so that everyone knows when that guidance may have changed. The last guidance said face shields may be an alternative for students with documented medical or behavioral challenges who are unable to wear mask face coverings. Prior to that, it said face shields may be an alternative for students with documented medical, behavioral, or other challenges. And I believe every superintendent in the state went, what does other mean? And so the DOE thought, yeah, that's kind of language that's up for grabs. So let's change it. What we're finding now is a little bit of a pushback from the hospitals to want to provide notes, medical notes for these things. So I think right now there's a little bit of hesitancy to do that because there's not enough data around face shields versus face masks. So it places us in a kind of awkward situation where as a school, we're not qualified to make medical determinations. So we're leaning a little heavily on our school nurses to say, what do you think about this? We're leaning a little bit on our social worker and our guidance counselor about behavioral things and what do you think about this? In the end, if we have a child that comes to school and rips this off and I'm not wearing this, and we can look at this is surely a behavior that's being caused by the face mask, we'll have to work to put a plan in place for a face shield. We just want to educate everyone, however, that this is the safest form of protection. So we really want to make sure that the majority of our folks are wearing a face shield, a face mask, and until we get more guidance that says otherwise. So that's one change that went in there. The only other change was the transportation change that I shared with you earlier, that students can sit two in a bus. So that has been updated. You can see it right here. Families will sit 2 per seat. Students will sit 2 per seat. Buses will not be filled to the maximum capacity, and family members will sit together as long as the brother and sister get along, or brother get along. We're also looking at, in the first 2 weeks of school, working with our 7th through 12th grade students on identifying some of those students as students who may be able to help us with the elementary age kids when they start, and asking some of those kids to assist with having the youngers sit in a designated seat when school starts, and reminding the importance of face mask wearing. We're going to try to do that in lieu of putting another adult on the bus. In the end, if it's unmanageable for the driver, even with the assistance of high school kids to try to help with that, we'll have to come back and talk about adult coverage on that bus. Right now, a driver can manage 65 kids on a bus, and the kids do have behavior issues. This is a game changer, though, and we know that. So we'll monitor and see how that all goes. Luckily, we have cameras in our buses now, and we can keep a closer eye on things and adjust accordingly. But the plan is right now to use our older students as role models in helping with the younger students. And we'll see how that goes. Those are the biggest changes in the plan. We also put out a staff handbook. So it's a spin-off of this handbook here, but it's specific just to our staff members and the questions they have. So this was given to our staff last Friday in the mail out, that the email that went out to them to report out on the week. And a lot of specific things, like we have staff that have been asking for a decision tree of, how do I know if I should come to work or not, if I have symptoms, and how long do I have to stay out. So this kind of gives a flow on, if you have symptoms and you travel to Miami-Dade, Florida, you should probably stay home. So there's all kinds of different flow to this that we find will be helpful. It has information to the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So we have staff that are asking about, if I get sick, do I get paid sick time for that? So we're giving them that information in advance, that you do have 10 days with the Families First Act where you can use that, or if you have child care issues directly related to COVID-19, you can get some of your pay back. So all of that information is there as well. And as staff are asking more and more questions, we're just adding to it and keeping it as a working document. So that's something that we're monitoring and doing as well. And that is the updates for our plan.
Are there any other questions? No. Calendar adjustment approval?
So as we shared with you via email last week, we needed to make a decision quick about changing the calendar to back up the year a week. And last week, we're kind of in a panic mode, especially for the middle high schools. We had not received any PPE yet. We still had not had clear guidance on many things that we needed to have. And we still have a lot of questions that are being asked now that we're still not quite sure on. Our numbers, although now they're firming up, Mid last week, they were not firm at all. They spoke to Ralph and Cheryl, and they were still missing, quite a few students with their data, and teachers were unsure about how many remote learners am I going to have in my class, and how many, and with so many uncertainties, I think it was Wednesday, I met with the principal, and I said, what do you need? And all three principals for the middle high schools, and Kevin as well, said we need another week, at least another week. And so we sent out that email to all of you, got responses, and we think that was the right choice. So because we need board approval to signify that, what I'd be asking for you to tonight approve what you already pre-approved, which is a week delay for both schools. The way that we absorbed that week was we took a vacation day from December 23. December 23 was originally a vacation day. We turned it into an early release school day, so that's one of the 5 days that we absorbed there. We had a vacation day on April 16, which was a snow makeup vacation day. We took that one back, and that was 2. And then we added 17th and 18th to the calendar, which is 3, 4. And then we added a staff day on Monday, which is day 5. So the staff will still be working their 182 days if all goes well, and the students will have 175 instead of 176. Because this year we do not have a minimum school number of days, we have that waiver again this year. If we do have a snow day, I would be recommending to all of you that students do not make up the snow day. Instead, we would have a plan in advance for a remote PD day for all teachers. So the teachers could do professional development on a snow day specific to remote learning and all the things that we need. If we would have that pre-planned, so that if it happens on February 12th, we have that already in place, and not make up the snow day for students, because adding more days at the end of June, I think would not be wise after what I'm sure is going to be quite an interesting year. So I guess at that point, I'll just entertain a motion to accept this calendar.
I move to accept the.
Second. Casey? All in favor? That's motion carried. New business. New hires.
Oh, and Melanie, told me the name that I'm supposed to recognize. Ken Lundquist, correct? We had a resignation last month of a cook assistant at Dr. Levac, and in making some movements throughout the 3 kitchens or the 6 kitchens that Melanie has, we had a gentleman by the name of Ken Lundquist who is helping with the summer meal program as a sub in multiple kitchens. And Melanie says he was just wonderful, so she's recommending Ken Lundquist as the new cook assistant at Dr. Levac. Ken, I believe, is the brother-in-law of Doug Clark.
What's the name there? Lundquist?
Lundquist.
We had a motion to accept Ken Lundquist as the assistant cook.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Casey? Second. And more question, all in favor? Get her. I forget her name.
What's up?
Melissa. Okay, motion carried. Current openings, educational technician at the tech center.
Yeah, we still have 2 educational technician positions, one at the tech center. The other one at Dr. Levac was originally a half-time position, but in speaking with Cheryl about our move to make pre-K a full day, we actually have the need for a full day ed tech. So that listing has been changed for a full day ed tech, not just half day. So again, if you know anyone who's interested in working as an ed tech, please send them my way.
additional nursing services?
So the last item I have for you tonight is centered around nursing services. You know, right now you have Stephanie, who's wonderful. Stephanie is an amazing nurse. She goes above and beyond in doing anything that needs to be done in the district with regards to attendance and 504s, and so she really does a good job. It's become clear, and I'll let Peter elaborate a little bit, as he's been working with the nurses in the health advisory with Northern Maine Medical Center, that our nurses are going to be very, very busy this school year. When you look at when a student calls in sick to school with symptoms, or a parent calls in sick for their child and reiterates that they have some of the symptoms on our symptom checklist, you know, it's the nurse that's got to follow up with those families, make them, you know, make appointments with the hospital or whatever the primary care placement is, and, you know, and possibly, you know, look into getting COVID-19 tested. If you look at every kid that gets sick in school, having any of these symptoms, having to be isolated in our school isolation rooms, having the nurse most likely don the full PPE to you know, to tend to the student and take care of their needs, while in the meantime we contact their parents to come pick them up. It's a lot to do, even if you are a nurse in one school. When you're a nurse in 3 schools, that's superhuman, and I don't know how Stephanie's going to be able to do it all herself. So one thing that I propose, or I'm proposing to you all, using our CARES or CRF funds, or a combination of both, is the possibility of hiring an additional nurse for the district, and then looking at contracting half of that nurse to Madawaska, because they have a similar need. So essentially, you would be looking at hiring an extra half-day nurse to help Stephanie. When Stephanie's here, this half nurse is there, and then we figure out a schedule that will work the best in cooperation with Madawaska, so that that nurse could have the services of helping there for their needs for their half of the day. I think a full nurse would work, but I don't know that at such a smaller district, if you need 2 full-time nurses, I can say that you definitely need a little more than what Stephanie can give you right now. So I think a half-time nurse would definitely work. And then again, Madawaska would share half of those expenses through a contract that we push out their way. If they accept, if Madawaska determines that they don't have that need, I think your need for a full-time nurse would still be sufficient. So I don't know if you want to add that here, or if you had a conversation with.
Just very briefly, I think the volume of work for the school nurses is going to just increase dramatically based on the protocols that we have in place. For any student who is demonstrating any one of the symptoms that could be associated with COVID-19, whether there's a primary symptom, and other, but less common symptom, or additional symptoms, when you look through that list, virtually the only way a student is coming directly to the office is if they have a physical injury. Anything else, the nurse needs to walk to the classroom, escort the student back, put them in the isolation room, monitor, get a real solid feel on what the symptoms are, contact the parent. When the parent comes in, notify the parent, you need to have your child see your PCP. If the parent says, no, we're not going to do that, we're not going to go to the hospital every time they have a tummy ache or whatever, then the nurse needs to advise the parent that, okay, then we need to go into 10 days of remote learning. We just don't have any option. There's going to be a lot of follow-up work, and we're not just talking students, they're going to be a point person for staff as well. Any staff member demonstrating symptoms, the nurse needs to work with that person too. And for Stephanie to be able to do that in 3 schools, as energetic as she is with everything else that she does, we just don't know that's possible or even fair or equitable for this particular school year. So we highly recommend that this course of action.
So I'm looking at the logistics of this, and I like the algorithm that you have.
But what's gonna happen in a month and a half from now, when everybody's got the sniffles and everybody's got the coughs, and have about maybe 30% of what COVID-19 has, are we expecting all the students to stay home because of sniffles and coughs, and it's just a common cold?
Not if there's an alternative diagnosis provided by a PCP, then they can return 24 hours after the symptoms have discontinued without any medication.
And I'm looking at more of the teachers too. I mean, we could have 80% of our teachers call up and say that they had sniffles today. I mean, what are we gonna do? We're not gonna cover the subsidy. You know, we're gonna have to make educated decisions on that, say we're probably common cold or.
Well, I think one of our backup options in a case like that is to actually have the teacher work with students remotely from home, and you still have the students in their classrooms here, and then staff the classroom so that somebody's there to manage and ensure that the students are actually doing what they need to be doing. That's what we've looked at.
It is very challenging and
Yeah.
a lot of weekend night jobs thinking of all this is.
We all do, Josh, we're like, oh my God.
The best thing we can do is arm ourselves with information that's helpful. So this is a symptom chart that has gone out to the staff about how do you distinguish between, could this be COVID, is this just a cold, or could it be the flu? And we're hoping that, staff can be mindful about, what those symptoms are and whether or not they should be, coming to school. So it's the best we can do, but you're right. I mean, it's, nobody's gonna want to send their healthy kids to school if they know that another student who was in the classroom got sent home the day before with possible symptoms, and that's going to spread like wildfire. You know how it is. So the best we can do is try to have a system in place where we say, okay, we sent you home. You're going to stay home for this amount of time unless you get tested, and it's going to be. So. With that being said, what are your thoughts? Should we be going for our own full-time nurse, or do we think a half-time nurse in shared with Madawaska is sufficient enough? I thought that would be the best way to start, and then because we really don't know what the needs are, and I would hate to employ a full-time nurse here and now to have an extra nurse that doesn't have enough work to fill her day or his day. I just don't know what. Is that nurse full-time right now or part-time? Our nurses, yeah, full-time school year. What do you think?
I think a half-time nurse.
I don't want to go. Come on.
These kids are gonna be sick. My kids, like for an example, have not been sick since February.
Yeah.
So the minute they congregate, it's gonna blow up.
It is. Our immune system.
Telling you right now.
Yep.
Their immune systems are low, they haven't had it like boosted by anything, they haven't even had a cold, zero, nothing since February. So, and I have 4 kids, so not of nothing, so it's gonna be a hot mess,
It is.
a super hot mess. So.
I feel so much better now.
I personally think you could probably use a full-time nurse.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna need it. And you're gonna have a lot of people saying, well, I'm not gonna get them, who's paying for this to get them tested? Like, so the parents are gonna have this, like, there's gonna be insurance issues and who's paying for this test and who's paying for this appointment, and it's gonna be stressful, super stressful.
There's going to be a lot of monitoring and managing and record keeping and data compilation that we're going to have in place.
And then if you would have some outbreak for whatever reason, that in itself would be a huge undertaking. The main CDC is, from what I hear from my employees, and it isn't the greatest in Erskine County, so just warning you, so, the nurse might have to do some footwork.
Oh, yeah, the contact tracing would be the responsibility of the nurse.
Yeah, so I think, I don't think sharing with Madawaska sounds very reasonable for this year. I do think that it might not be needed in the future, but maybe for this school year, I don't know, half-time seems like might be stretching it a little bit, in my opinion. It's just fine.
I agree. So for school nurse, you have two at full
Because she also does the tech, correct?
She does cover the tech.
Yeah, so that's 3 buildings and 1.5 positions, I think is just not manageable. I mean, that Alexa might be able to manage with 1.5, since they just have high school and elementary school, but we have that tech center too. So that's a whole, and that's kids from all the schools, so if something outbreaks there, that's an even bigger mess. You then have all the schools involved with who will be in contact with that kid that goes to Madawaska, that goes to the tech center, that's, oh my goodness, I can't even, no thanks.
And we have relinquished our responsibility to those students who are even on remote learning. There's going to have to be.
I think it's a huge undertaking for, I think, especially considering the 3 buildings, I think we might be in full-time nurse.
I will tell you, SAB 27 went with two.
Yeah, I think that was the right decision for them too, because they have more students on top of that also, so.
We're looking for a motion.
Gene, you're quiet there on top of the screen. What's your opinion?
Any thoughts on it, Gene?
I don't think she's.
Looks like she's talking.
Her own computer.
Oh, there he is.
Gene, can you hear us? What are your thoughts about an extra school nurse?
It's cutting in and out.
Extra school nurse, are you in support? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we need a motion to approve this full-time school nurse.
So I make a motion to approve an additional full-time school nurse.
Josh, second. Melissa, I know your name. Well, I had a great part.
I'll wear a name tag.
And just so that you're all in the know, if this nurse does, we're gonna advertise tomorrow. Quite quickly, a lot of nurses have conditions where they have to, meet their obligations for their employment. So we may not have a nurse to start the school year on. So we may be looking to other employees to help out as best we can.
Medical facility, it's a 4-week notice. Yeah. For a nurse.
Unless you know the CEO.
Is there any other,
Probably not gonna happen.
any other discussion? All in favor of adding full-time school nurse? Motion carried. Do you want to adjourn before we, for the building? Or?
I think we can because we don't have other business. I think we can just that.
No.
The only thing I have is our next scheduled meeting is Monday, August 31st. Are you guys all set with keeping it at that date? It's a meeting before the start of the elementary year. I think that's a good time to report out on what so far with middle high school and what's happening with our elementary school, keeping it with the. And the only move, I think I'm going to move it to that elementary so that we can maybe walk around the elementary and see how they're prepared for the school year. So when we send out the agenda item, the materials it will be saved up for that, not the text.
Need a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second. All in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you, Gene.